Last February, I watched as a heroic President Zelensky of Ukraine, looking for help for his beleaguered country, as he sat in the Oval Office and was verbally attacked and bullied by the current executives in power in our country, saying that he wasn't grateful enough, blaming him for the war that was started by a power-hungry dictator. And something inside me said, I can't just sit here anymore. I have to do something about this. So I did something very simple. I went out and I bought a 3x5 foot Ukrainian flag. I went to Home Depot and bought some long PVC pipe. I drilled some holes in it. I got some zip ties and I made a big Ukrainian flag fastened to that PVC pipe. And then I stood on a bridge in Lehigh during rush hour, and I waved that Ukrainian flag during rush hour. I had to get my angst out. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit there anymore. And I got a lot of supportive honks. I was grateful for that. Then, when I started hearing about the rhetoric related to Canada and the 51st state and those kinds of things, I went out and bought a Canadian flag. And I stood on that same bridge, and then I was holding both flags. I did that for a few weeks last February. It was a little bit chilly, probably a little colder last February than it was this February, this year. Because that's who we are, or at least that's who we're supposed to be. A country of allies, a country of truth, a country of respect. But that moment led me to something bigger. I started going to congressional town hall meetings. By the way, I'm a political rookie. I kind of prefer to ride my dirt bikes and go fishing with my kids and go camping. But I am in this now, and I'm all in. I started going to town hall meetings and asking questions. I started going to protests. I started talking to my neighbors. I started knocking on my neighbors' doors, not even knowing what I was going to say. I just wanted to find out if I was crazy or not. So I started knocking on their doors. Then my wife Karen joined me, who's even more passionate than I am. In fact, anyone who knows her knows that she should actually be here and I should be back there. And I tried to get her to do it, but she is supporting me in this endeavor. And then one conversation turned into 10, and 10 turned into 100, and now I've made it my mission to knock on all 10,000 doors in my district by November. And run as a forward party candidate for House District 53 in Lehigh, which is where we've lived for 25 years, which the district includes East Lehigh and a little bit of American Fork. I knock most evenings, and I've been doing this since September. So I've knocked for about 7 or 8 months now. First, for the first 2 or 3 months as a non-candidate, just as a concerned citizen, and then since November, I've been knocking as a candidate. And I've knocked on 3,000 doors so far. And I have to tell you, I absolutely love it. I love knocking on those doors and talking to the people because I am learning so much. And I get to actually let people vent a little bit, and I get to vent a little bit, and we get to have a respectful conversation. And I've talked to some very far-right people, and some moderate people, and some far-left people. Most of the conversations that I've had have been very friendly and very supportive of what I'm doing. In fact, I would say 7 or 8 times out of 10, when I tell them what I'm doing, where I'm trying to get people back to the table and have respectful dialogue, they kind of roll their eyes and say, thank you very much. I agree with what you're doing. What I've learned is that we are living in an unprecedented time right now. I've learned that most people are reasonable and want to get back to civil dialogue. I've learned also that people don't know what to believe anymore. When disinformation is repeated so often, the people begin to believe it. And when I talk to people at their doors, a lot of them say the same thing. I don't think I want to get involved in politics anymore. I don't think I want to be a part of it. I think I want to withdraw. People are exhausted, people are giving up, and people are kind of cocooning. They're climbing up, and they're getting reclusive about this. And I understand that feeling. But here's the reality. It's too late for that. We don't have that option anymore. We are all involved now. No matter whether we like it or not, we are involved in this because the decisions being made in Washington and right here in Utah are profoundly affecting every single one of us every day. Some in positive ways, but many in ways that are harmful and even dangerous. We're seeing our Constitution, our sacred foundation, being tested and in many ways, in many cases, ignored and disrespected like never before. We're seeing attacks on the press, on freedom of speech, on universities, on law firms. We're seeing people, immigrants, and even citizens being detained, deported, and in some cases harmed without due process. I met a man while knocking on doors who came out to find me after I'd already left his house. He walked down and tried to find me on the street, and he said, I need to tell you something. He said, my wife is an immigrant from India, and she's legal, She's a legal immigrant from India, and she's afraid to leave the house. Think about that. A legal resident afraid in America to leave the house. We're seeing judges attacked, court orders ignored, we're seeing tariffs imposed, and wars started without proper constitutional process, proper congressional approval. We're seeing voter suppression efforts driven by disinformation. Russ talked a little bit about disinformation. Like the SAVE Act nationally, and bills like HB 479 right here in Utah that just tried to get passed related to mail-in ballots, where they wanted us to walk in those ballots. I actually commented, I made a public comment in that hearing. Underneath all of this, though, is something deeper. It's called disinformation. Disinformation is not just a problem, it's a plague. It's at the root, I believe it's at the root of most of our disunity. It's poisoning our conversations, it's dividing our communities, and it's eroding trust. I had another young man come out to find me after I knocked on, I remember this, it was an apartment complex, and I had talked to him, then I went and knocked on some more doors, and he came, he was looking all over in the other apartment buildings for me, and he found me. I was on the second floor. He came, walked up the stairs, and he was kind of out of breath, and this guy was probably 23 years old. He said, "Can I ask you a question? I don't want to bother you, but can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Yeah, go ahead." And he said, "What can we do about the disinformation?" He was worried about that. That should stop all of us in our tracks. Here's the reality. Trust is almost gone. Trust between parties, among lawmakers, among citizens, and without trust, democracy doesn't work. So what do? Let's act. We get back to the table, not to shout, not to score points, but to listen. We bring back respect, compassion, and truth. We bring back facts into the conversation. Let's check our sources. Let's not just say things because we heard it on a news source or from somebody down the road. And then when this happens, something powerful evolves. We can actually solve problems and innovate again. I spent a career in entrepreneurship, and we've had to innovate a lot in the various experiences that I've had. And we can innovate and we can solve problems like what's going to happen with the future of the Great Salt Lake? What about affordable housing for our families? Clean air for our children? Traffic congestion that's choking our communities? Protecting voter voice and initiatives like Prop 4? Strengthening education and supporting our teachers? Thank you. These are not Republican issues. These are not Democrat issues. They are Utah issues. They are American issues. And this is where the Forward Party comes in. Because let's be honest, the two-party system is not working. The Founding Fathers did not intend for us to have a two-party system. There are a couple of great quotes that I won't recite right now from John Adams and George Washington that said, "Beware of the two-party system because it'll devolve into tribalism like it is now." We need something different. We need a movement that says, and I'll say it again, I said it a couple times today, we need a movement that says not left, not right, forward. And in my opinion, there has never been a more important time for that movement than right now. And here's the most important part. We cannot just sit back and hope things get better. We have to act. Every single one of us has to do something. That might be standing on a bridge. It might be writing letters. Karen has written 3 times as many letters as I have to our congresspeople and others. Putting up signs, talking to your neighbors, coming to an event like this, supporting candidates that you believe in, becoming a delegate in your party of choice, getting signatures, showing up to meetings and even protests. Because democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires participation, it requires courage, and it requires people like you. So tonight, I stand before you as somebody who does not have all the answers, but as someone who wants to listen, to respect, to work, and to serve. Someone who believes that we can restore trust, that we can bring back truth into our conversations, and that we can move Utah and this country forward together. Now let's get to work. Thanks so much.